The alarm screamed through the bridge of the Defiant Hope, cutting through the quiet hum of deep space travel. Captain Ji-hoon Park looked up from his coffee, setting the cup down carefully as the communications officer's hands flew across her console. "Sir, we're picking up a distress signal. It's close, really close." Ji-hoon stood and walked to the main display. The signal pulsed red against the star map, coordinates blinking urgently. "What do we have?" "It's from the Velen Republic, Captain. Their diplomatic vessel crashed on Chromath 7's third moon. They're reporting multiple casualties, failing life support, and hostile wildlife." Dr. Haeon Kim looked up from her medical station, her dark eyes sharp with concern. "Velens? They're the insectoid traders, right? 6 limbs, exoskeleton, breathe methane-enriched atmosphere." "That's them," the communications officer confirmed. She touched her earpiece, listening. "Captain, they sound terrified. They're begging any ship in range to help them." Lieutenant Doyen Choi moved to the tactical station, his movements smooth and efficient. Years in Special Forces had trained him to stay calm when everyone else panicked. "Chromath 7 is flagged in the database, sir. Class 6 Deathworld. Galactic Protocol recommends all vessels maintain a minimum safe distance of 2 astronomical units." Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "Class 6? That's it?" Doyen allowed himself a small smile. "According to galactic standards, yes, sir." For reference, Haeon added, pulling up comparison data on her screen. "Earth is classified as Class 12. Chromath 7 has slightly higher gravity than the Velen homeworld. Temperature variations of about 40 degrees, and some atmospheric pressure fluctuations. There are also predatory animals." The captain walked back to his chair and sat down, fingers drumming on the armrest.
He had spent 20 years working in Earth's most hostile environments before joining the space program.
He had survived typhoons in the Pacific, sandstorms in the Gobi Desert, and a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. A Class 6 world sounded like a vacation. "How many Velens are we talking about?" 15 on board their vessel, sir. At least 5 are injured. They say predators have been testing their hull integrity for the past 6 hours. Ji-hoon looked at his crew. They had been together for 2 years now, ever since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel and built its first deep space vessels. The Defiant Hope was designed as a rescue and recovery ship, built tough and staffed with people who understood danger. "Engineer Lee, how long to reach them?" Minji Lee looked up from the engineering console, her short hair sticking up in several directions from where she had been lying under a panel. "If I push the engines?" 4 hours, Captain." "Will the engines survive being pushed?" Minji grinned. "They'll complain, but they'll do it. I built safety margins into those systems that would make the Velen engineers cry." "Do it." Ji-hoon turned to the communication station. "Send a response. Tell them help is coming, and get me everything we have on Chromath 7. Environment, wildlife, geological activity, everything." The ship hummed as Minji redirected power to the engines. The Defiant Hope leaped forward, stars stretching into lines as they accelerated. Haeon moved to stand beside the captain's chair. "Ji-hoon, we should prepare the medical bay. If they've been injured and stuck there for hours, they'll need immediate treatment." "Agreed. Take whoever you need and get ready. Doyen, I want a tactical assessment. If there are predators, I need to know what we're dealing with." Doyen's fingers moved across his console, pulling up every piece of data the Galactic Union had on Chromath 7. His expression remained neutral, but Ji-hoon saw the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Problem, Lieutenant?" "No, sir, just reviewing the threat assessment. The apex predator on Chromath 7 is listed as extremely dangerous. Average mass of 400 kilograms, venomous barbs, pack-hunting behavior." He paused. "The database recommends armed military units maintain extreme caution." "And what's your assessment?" "They're about the size of a large bear, sir. Venomous, yes, but the toxin is protein-based. Standard anti-venom protocols should work. Pack hunters means they're smart but predictable." Doyen looked up. "We should be fine with standard equipment." Ji-hoon nodded. Earth had taught humanity to respect nature, but not to fear it. When your home planet had everything from microscopic parasites to massive predators, each with thousands of years of evolution making them perfect killers, you learned to adapt. The hours passed quickly as the crew prepared. Haeon stocked the medical bay with broad-spectrum treatments and set up isolation units for the Velen's specific atmospheric needs. Doyen organized the security team, checking weapons and protective gear. Minji ran constant diagnostics on the engines, pushing them harder than most engineers would dare. Ji-hoon spent the time reviewing everything they knew about the Velens, They were a peaceful species, traders and diplomats who had been part of the Galactic Union for 300 years. They came from a low-gravity world with a stable climate and few predators. Their evolution had favored cooperation over competition, trade over conflict. No wonder they were terrified on Chromath 7. "Captain, we're approaching the moon now," the pilot announced. "I'm picking up the crashed vessel on scanners. It's in a valley between two mountain ranges. Show me." The main screen switched to external cameras. Chromath 7's moon filled the view, a world of gray stone and dark vegetation. The crashed Velen ship sat in a clearing, its hull cracked and scarred. Even from orbit, Jihoon could see the marks where something large had tried to break through. "I'm detecting movement around the vessel," Doyen reported. "Multiple heat signatures, large, definitely biological. The predators are still there. Can we set down near the ship?" The pilot studied the readings. "There's a clearing about 200 meters away. It's flat enough for our dropship." "Good. Doyen, take a security team. High-on medical team with full gear. Minji, I want you there in case their ship's systems can be salvaged." "I'm coming too," Heian frowned. "Jihoon, if something happens to you..." Then Lieutenant Choi takes command and completes the mission. "We don't leave people behind, Heian. That's not who we are." The doctor nodded, understanding. It was one of the core principles humanity had carried into space. On Earth, leaving someone behind meant death. That instinct, born from millions of years on a world that tried to kill you daily, did not disappear just because you left the planet. The team assembled in the dropship bay. 12 people total, each wearing light protective gear that would handle Chromath 7's environment easily. Their equipment looked almost casual compared to the heavy environmental suits most species used. Pilot Subin Huang ran through her pre-flight checks with practiced ease. She had flown rescue missions in some of Earth's worst weather. "This would be easy by comparison. Everyone strapped in?" Subin asked. When she received confirmations, she grinned. "All right then, let's go rescue some aliens." The dropship detached from the Defiant Hope and descended through the atmosphere. Turbulence shook the craft, but Subin's hand stayed steady on the controls. Through the viewports, they could see the moon's surface rushing up to meet them. "Landing in 30 seconds, Subin announced. "I'm reading multiple large animals near the Velen ship. They're keeping their distance, but they're watching." Jihoon stood and checked his sidearm. "Remember, we're here to rescue, not to hunt. Doyen, weapons free only if they attack. Otherwise, we scare them off." "Understood, sir." The dropship touched down with barely a bump. The rear ramp began to lower, and Chromath 7's atmosphere rushed in. It smelled of stone and vegetation, sharp and clean. Jihoon took his first step onto an alien world and breathed deep. The gravity felt slightly heavy, like wearing a weighted vest. The air was thin but manageable. The temperature was cool, maybe 15 degrees Celsius. Behind him, his team filed out, weapons ready but not raised. In the distance, the Velen ship sat silent and dark, and surrounding it, watching with hungry eyes, were the predators. The Velen ship looked worse up close. Deep gouges ran along the hull where something had tried to claw its way inside. One of the landing struts was completely broken, leaving the vessel tilted at an awkward angle. Through a cracked viewport, Jihoon could see movement inside. "They're alive," Heian said, her medical scanner picking up life signs. 15 Velens, 5 showing signs of severe distress. Their atmosphere is leaking. They have maybe 2 hours before it becomes critical. Doyun moved forward, his rifle ready, eyes scanning the tree line. The predators had not left. Jihoon could see them now, dark shapes moving between the twisted alien trees. They were big, built low to the ground with thick legs and armored heads. Rows of barbs ran down their backs, glistening with venom. "Sir, they're circling," one of the security team reported. "Classic pack behavior. They're trying to figure out what we are." "Let them wonder," Jihoon said. He activated his suit's external speakers. "This is Captain Jihoon Park of the human vessel Defiant Hope. We received your distress call. We're here to help." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice crackled over the radio, speaking in heavily accented but understandable English. The translator software helped smooth out the differences. "Human? You are human. But this is Class 6 world. How did you..." The voice broke off into a series of clicks and chirps. "Please, you must go. It is not safe. The predators, they will kill you." Jihoon looked at the creatures, watching them from the trees. One of them stepped into the clearing and he got his first good look. It was massive, easily 400 kilograms of muscle and armor. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The barbs on its back stood up, a clear threat display. Lieutenant Doyen stepped forward casually, pulled a protein bar from his pocket and took a bite. With his other hand, he raised his rifle and fired 3 quick shots. The creature dropped, dead before it hit the ground. The sound echoed across the valley. The other predators hesitated, suddenly unsure. "Problem solved," Doyen said, chewing his protein bar. "Sir, should I set up a perimeter?" Inside the Velen ship, the silence was deafening. Then the voice came back, higher pitched now, almost panicking. "You killed it. You just walked up and killed it. Those creatures have been attacking us for 6 hours. We lost 2 crew members trying to drive them away." Ji-hoon moved to the ship's main hatch. It was sealed tight, the emergency locks engaged. "Ambassador Tilvin, I need you to open this door so we can get you out. But the predators are not a problem. My team will handle them. Right now, I need to get my doctor inside to treat your wounded." There was a clicking sound, and the hatch slowly opened. Air hissed out, methane enriched and carrying the sharp smell of Velen biochemistry. Hyan immediately stepped forward, her medical kit ready. The Velens huddled inside their ship, all 6 limbs tucked close to their bodies in fear. They were insectoid with hard exoskeletons that shimmered in shades of green and blue. Their compound eyes reflected the light from the humans' equipment. Ambassador Tilvin stood at the front, trying to project authority despite the visible trembling. He was larger than the others, his exoskeleton marked with patterns that indicated rank. "You are really human? From Earth? The Class 12 Deathworld?" "That's right," Hyan said, moving past him to the wounded Velens. "I'm Dr. Kim. I need to see you're injured." "But our biochemistry, you cannot possibly." Hyan was already scanning the first wounded Velen. "Hemolymph loss, roughly equivalent to 30%. Circulatory system damage to the 3rd segment. Toxin exposure from predator venom." She pulled out a syringe filled with a clear fluid. "This is a broad-spectrum coagulant. It will stop the bleeding. The toxin is protein-based, so this anti-venom should neutralize it." "You are touching our blood," Tilvin said, his voice filled with horror. "It is acidic to most species. Your skin should be burning." Hyan looked down at her gloves. They were standard medical gloves, rated for handling Earth's most dangerous substances. Velen hemolymph was acidic, yes, but compared to the stuff she had handled during her training in chemical disaster zones, it was mild. "I've worked with worse," she said simply, and continued treating the wounded. Outside, medic Hyunwoo Nam was helping Doyen set up a defensive perimeter. The predators were still watching, but they kept their distance now. The death of one of their pack had made them cautious. "They're smart," Hyunwoo observed. "They're testing us, trying to figure out if we're dangerous." "They should run," Doyen said flatly. "Ji-hoon, permission to fire warning shots if they get too close?" "Granted, but remember, we're not here to wipe out the local wildlife. Just keep them away from the Velens." Minji Lee crawled under the Velen ship, her scanner mapping the damage. The crash had destroyed most of their primary systems. The hull was cracked in 3 places, the power core was dead, and the navigation system was completely fried. "This ship isn't flying again," she called out. "At least not without a month of repairs and a full shipyard. We'll need to evacuate everyone to our dropship." Ji-hoon nodded. That was what he had expected. "How many trips?" 2, maybe 3. The dropship can take 8 Velens at a time if we pack them in." Inside the Velen ship, Hyan had stabilized all 5 wounded crew members. They stared at her with their compound eyes, trying to process what they were seeing. This human, this creature from a world so deadly that most species considered it a myth, was saving their lives with casual efficiency. Ambassador Tilvin approached Ji-hoon carefully. "Captain Park, I must ask. Your world, Earth. How did you survive long enough to develop space travel? The galactic records say your planet has predators that hunt for sport, weather that destroys cities, and diseases that can kill in hours." Ji-hoon considered the question. "We learned. We adapted. We built tools and societies, and we never gave up. Yes, Earth is dangerous, but it's our home. We love it. But this world, Tilvin gestured at the landscape outside, we consider this extremely hostile. Yet you walk around like it is nothing. You breathe the air without full environmental suits. You fight the predators with small weapons. How? Perspective, Ji-hoon said. To us, this world is mild. The gravity is a bit high but manageable. The temperature is cool but comfortable. The predators are dangerous, yes, but no more than a bear or a tiger back home. We respect them, but we don't fear them. A loud roar echoed across the valley, and everyone tensed. Through the open hatch, they could see something massive emerging from the trees. It was 3 times the size of the predators they had already seen, with armored plates covering its body and a massive tail that dragged behind it. The Velans began clicking in panic. The alpha predator, we detected it on our scanners before we crashed. It is the reason we tried to avoid this moon. Captain, you must take your people and go. That creature is unstoppable. Do-yeon looked at the creature through his rifle scope. It's big, I'll give it that. Probably 800 kilograms. Thick armor plating. Those claws could definitely do damage. He lowered his rifle and pulled out his radio. Subin, you got eyes on the big one? Pilot Subin Huang's voice came back calm and steady. I see it, Do-yeon. You want me to light it up with the dropship's guns? Negative. Let's see if we can scare it off first. I'd rather not kill it if we don't have to. The massive predator stepped into the clearing, its eyes fixed on the humans and Velans. It opened its mouth and roared again, a sound that made the ground vibrate. Ji-hoon stepped forward and Tilvin grabbed his arm. Captain, please do not throw your life away. We are grateful for your help, but... Ambassador, watch and learn. Ji-hoon pulled a small device from his belt and pressed a button. A high-pitched sound burst from it, frequencies designed to cause discomfort in most Earth predators. The massive creature stopped, shaking its head. Ji-hoon pressed another button and the sound changed, becoming deeper, more aggressive. It was a challenge, the kind of sound a territorial predator would make. The creature took a step back, confused. This tiny thing was challenging it? The sound came again, louder now, and the creature's instincts warred with its aggression. Finally, survival won out. It turned and disappeared back into the trees, crashing through the underbrush. The Velans stared in absolute silence. What just happened? Tilvin finally asked. Psychology, Ji-hoon said, putting the device away. Most predators are smart enough to avoid fights they're not sure they can win. I made it think we were more dangerous than we look. But you are more dangerous than you look, Tilvin said quietly. We are beginning to understand this. Haeon finished with the last wounded Velan and stood up. All stable. They'll need more treatment on the Defiant Hope, but they'll survive. We should evacuate now, before that big one decides to come back with friends. The evacuation went smoothly. The first group of Velans boarded the dropship, still trembling from everything they had witnessed. As Subin lifted off, Ji-hoon looked around the clearing. The predators were still out there, watching, waiting. Second trip in 20 minutes, he said to his team. Stay sharp. Do-yeon nodded, his rifle ready. Beside him, Hyunwoo was already setting up medical equipment for the next group. Minji was taking samples of the Velan ship's technology, always thinking about what could be salvaged or learned. This was what humans did. They adapted. They survived. They helped others survive. Ambassador Tilvin stood beside Ji-hoon. The last group of Velans was boarding the dropship when the ground began to shake. At first, Ji-hoon thought it was just the normal tremors that happened on geologically active moons. Then the shaking got stronger and small rocks started rolling down the nearby hillside. Seismic activity? He asked Minji, who was checking her scanner. The engineer's face went pale. That's not an earthquake, Captain. Something big is moving underground. And it's coming this way. Do-yeon immediately moved the remaining Velans toward the dropship. Everyone on board now. But before they could reach the ramp, the ground erupted 50 meters away. Dirt and stone exploded into the air as something massive burst from beneath the surface. The creature that emerged was like nothing they had seen before. It was 30 meters long, with a body covered in thick, segmented armor. Its head was mostly mouth, circular and lined with rows of grinding teeth designed for crushing rock. Ambassador Tilvin made a sound of pure terror. A tunnel borer. The apex predator of Chromath 7, Captain, we must leave now. The creature turned toward them, sensing movement. It had no eyes, but its entire body was covered in sensory organs that could detect vibrations through the ground. It knew exactly where they were. Subin, get that dropship airborne, Jihoon ordered. Keep the wounded Velans safe. Sir, I can provide air support. Negative. Your first priority is the wounded. We'll handle this. The dropship lifted off, engines roaring as it climbed away from danger. The tunnel borer tracked the sound for a moment, then turned its attention back to the humans and Velans still on the ground. Doyen raised his rifle and fired a burst at the creature's head. The bullet sparked off the armor, barely leaving marks. Sir, standard weapons aren't going to cut it. I can see that, Lieutenant. Jihoon's mind raced. They needed to either kill this thing or drive it away, and they had maybe 30 seconds before it decided to attack. Minji was still staring at her scanner, her engineer's brain working through the problem. Captain, look at the way it moves. It's designed for tunneling, which means it uses vibrations to navigate. What if we confused its senses? How? The dropship's engines created a lot of noise. If we could make something louder, more chaotic, it might retreat back underground. Jihoon looked at their equipment. They had rifles, a few grenades, medical supplies, and Minji's engineering kit. What did you have in mind? Give me your grenades. All of them. The team quickly handed over their explosive devices. Minji worked fast, using tools from her kit to wire them together. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, the kind that came from years of improvising solutions in dangerous situations. The tunnel borer moved closer, its massive body sliding across the ground. The Velans still on the ground were clicking frantically, their fear overwhelming their ability to communicate in English. Minji, whatever you're doing, do it faster, Doyen said, placing himself between the creature and the Velans. Almost done. I'm setting them to detonate in sequence 1 second apart. The vibrations should overwhelm its sensory organs. Should. It's either this or we try to outrun a creature that moves through solid rock. Minji finished the last connection. Everyone back up. Way back. They retreated toward a cluster of large boulders. Minji set the timer for 10 seconds, then threw the device as hard as she could toward the tunnel borer. It landed about 20 meters from the creature. Cover your ears. The first explosion shook the ground, then the second, then the third, until all 6 grenades had detonated in rapid sequence. The combined noise was deafening, and the vibrations traveled through the ground in overlapping waves. The tunnel borer jerked as if it had been struck. Its sensory organs were being overloaded with information, unable to process the chaotic signals. It thrashed its tail, confused and disoriented. It's working, Doyen said. Keep watching. If it comes at us anyway, aim for the mouth. That's the only place without heavy armor. But the creature had had enough. With a sound like grinding stone, it dove back into the ground, disappearing into the tunnel it had created. The shaking gradually stopped, and silence returned to the clearing. Jihoon let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Good thinking, engineer. Minji grinned, though her hands were shaking slightly. I learned that trick dealing with seismic sensors in the Korean mines. If you can't turn off the machine, confuse it. While they waited for the dropship to return for them, young Ensign Minho Kang approached one of the alien plants growing near the crashed Velan ship. He was new to the crew, this being his first real rescue mission. Everything about this world fascinated him. Sir, is it safe to touch the vegetation? He asked. Before Jihoon could answer, botanist Jiwon Song appeared from behind a rock, her eyes bright with excitement. She had been collecting samples throughout the entire rescue operation, completely unfazed by the danger. Safe? Oh, Minho, you have to see this. She held up a plant with purple leaves. According to the Galactic database, this species produces a toxin that causes severe respiratory distress in most species. But look at the molecular structure. She showed him her scanner. It's almost identical to wild ginseng from Earth. The Velans think it's deadly, but we could probably brew tea with it. Minho looked at the plant, then at Jiwon. You want to make tea from an alien poison plant? Well, I'd test it first, obviously. But yes, she stuffed the plant into a collection bag. This entire moon is a treasure trove of xenobotany. The Velans were too terrified to study it properly. Ambassador Tilvin had been listening to this conversation with growing horror. Dr. Song, that plant killed one of our xenobiologists who accidentally touched it without proper protection. Jiwan looked at the plant again, then at her bare hands where she had been handling it. Oh, well, human skin is pretty thick compared to most species, and we've evolved resistance to a lot of plant toxins. Back on Earth, we have plants that can kill you just by standing near them. This one is pretty mild by comparison. The ambassador made a clicking sound that the translator registered as distressed laughter. Mild. You call this mild? Your entire species is insane. Maybe, Jiwan said cheerfully, but we're very good at staying alive. Thousands of kilometers away in orbit around a nearby planet, Council Representative Kelvik was watching the entire rescue operation through a surveillance drone. He was supposed to be monitoring human activities in this sector, making sure they followed Galactic Union protocols. What he was seeing made his scales itch with anxiety. He recorded every moment. The casual way the humans walked through conditions that would kill his species. The efficiency with which they handled predators. The creative problem-solving when faced with the tunnel borer. He watched Dr. Song collect samples of toxic plants with her bare hands. He watched Ensign Kang carry 3 Velans at once through a gas vent that the young human's equipment indicated was toxic. His breathing apparatus working easily while the Velans marveled at his physical strength. Kelvik began composing his report to the Galactic Union Council. His hands shook as he typed. Emergency Priority Report. Human Capabilities Assessment. We may have made a critical error in our first contact protocols. The humans are not just surviving in deadly conditions, they are thriving. They treat a Class 6 Deathworld as a minor inconvenience. Their casual approach to danger suggests that their baseline for survival is far beyond what we understood. He attached all the video footage, every scanner reading, every piece of data his drone had collected. The Council needed to see this. They needed to understand what humanity truly was. Recommendation: immediate review of human integration into the Galactic Union. Their capabilities exceed all projections. We must reconsider our classification systems. If Earth is truly a Class 12 Deathworld and these humans consider it home, then we have no framework for understanding what they are capable of. Kelvik sent the report and sat back, watching the drone feed as the human dropship returned to collect the last group. He watched Captain Park organize his team with calm efficiency. He watched the humans and Velans board together, the rescued and the rescuers. And he wondered what would happen when the rest of the galaxy learned what he had just learned. That humans were not just another species joining the galactic community. They were something entirely new. Something that had survived and thrived on a world that would kill almost any other known species. On the surface, Jihoon stood in the clearing one last time, looking at the alien landscape. The twin suns of the Chromath system were setting, casting long shadows across the valley. In the distance, he could hear the calls of native creatures as they emerged for the night. Beautiful, isn't it? Hyon said, standing beside him. It is. Different from Earth, but beautiful. He turned toward the dropship. Come on, Doc, let's get these people home. As they lifted off, Ambassador Tilvin approached Jihoon one more time. Captain, may I ask you something? Of course, Ambassador. When you first received our distress call when you saw that we were stranded on a Class 6 Deathworld, did you hesitate? Did you consider the danger? Jihoon thought about it honestly. No, Ambassador. We didn't hesitate. Someone needed help and we could provide it. That's all that mattered. But you could have died. This world could have killed you. Maybe, but every day on Earth, people face danger to help others. Firefighters run into burning buildings. The video went viral across the Galactic Union network in less than 6 hours. Ambassador Tilvin had shared his personal recordings of the rescue with the Velan government, who had immediately released them to the public. Within a day, every species in the galaxy had seen footage of humans walking casually through conditions that most species needed heavy protection to survive. The reaction was panic. Admiral Seoyun stood in the observation deck of the human embassy station, watching news feeds from dozens of worlds scroll across the displays. Her reflection in the window showed a woman in her 50s, with gray streaking through her black hair and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. They're calling us Chaos Agents, her aide said, reading through the latest reports. The Methodian Congress has submitted a formal request to quarantine Earth. The Broken Circle Coalition wants humans restricted to our own solar system. And Councillor Drethik is holding a press conference in an hour where he's expected to call for a full vote on human containment. Seoyun took a sip of her coffee. It was too hot for most species in the station, so she had to brew it in her private quarters. Another reminder that humans existed on a different scale from everyone else. What about the Velans? What are they saying? Ambassador Tilvin has been giving interviews nonstop. He's defending us, actually. Says we saved his entire delegation and showed nothing but professionalism. But his voice is being drowned out by the fearmongers. The door to the observation deck opened and journalist Una Park entered, her camera drone following behind her. She was young, energetic, and one of the few human reporters covering interstellar affairs. Her stories had a way of cutting through the political noise to show the human side of things. Admiral Bay, do you have a moment for comment? Seoyan smiled. When do I ever have time, Una? But ask anyway. The galaxy is scared of us. Multiple species are calling for restrictions on human movement and activities. How do you respond to claims that humans are too dangerous to integrate into galactic society? I respond by pointing out that we just saved 15 lives in conditions that no other species would even attempt to reach. We didn't start a war. We didn't conquer anyone. We answered a distress call. Seoyun looked directly at the camera. If that makes us dangerous, then I'm proud to be dangerous. Yuna's drone captured every word. This interview would be broadcast across human networks and translated into dozens of languages. There are claims that humans have an abnormal pain tolerance, that we treat deadly situations as casual, and that our very existence threatens the stability of the galactic order. What do you say to that? I say they're partially right. We do have a different perspective on danger because we come from Earth. But that doesn't make us a threat. It makes us uniquely qualified to help in situations that others can't handle. Seoyun paused. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the same respect any species deserves. In the Galactic Union Council chamber, Councillor Drethik was making his case to the assembled representatives. He was a broken circle delegate, a species that had evolved on a low-gravity world with few predators and stable weather. To him, humans represented everything that was wrong with allowing random species into the galactic community without proper vetting. Look at the evidence, he said, his translator converting his chittering language into standard galactic. Humans evolved on a world classified as Class 12. Nothing higher has ever been discovered. Their planet experiences regular extinction-level events that they simply accept as normal. Hurricanes that destroy cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, volcanic eruptions that block out their sun for months. He displayed images of Earth disasters on the main screen, footage of tsunamis, tornadoes, wildfires that consumed entire forests. And yet they thrive. They build their cities in the most dangerous locations possible. They live on fault lines and in flood zones. They consider this normal. Council Representative Kelvik watched from his seat, uncomfortable with where this was going. He had filed his report about the Chromath 7 rescue, but he had not intended it to fuel this kind of reaction. But my greatest concern, Drethik continued, is what happens when these humans decide they want something. They are survivors, yes, but survival instinct without moral framework is simply predation. How long before they turn that capability against us? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives agreed with Drethik, their fear obvious. Others were more cautious, unwilling to condemn an entire species based on speculation. A few, including Kelvik, tried to interject with more balanced perspectives. Order. The council chair called for silence. We will hear from the human representative. Admiral Bay, you have the floor. Seoyun stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She wore her formal military uniform. Medals earned during Earth's various conflicts displayed on her chest. She did not carry any weapons, but her very presence made some of the representatives nervous. Councilors, thank you for hearing me. I want to address the concerns raised by Councillor Drethik directly. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as she could. Yes, Earth is dangerous. Yes, we have evolved to survive in conditions that most of you would find lethal. But that is not a flaw. It's our strength. She activated her own display, showing footage from the Chromath 7 rescue. When the Velans sent their distress call, every other ship in range ignored it. The risk was too high. The moon was too dangerous. But humans didn't calculate risk versus reward. We heard people in trouble and we responded. That is who we are, but that's exactly the problem. Drethik interrupted. You don't calculate risk. You charge into danger without proper consideration. That's reckless, and no, Counselor. It's courage. There's a difference. Seoyun's voice was firm but not aggressive. We assess risks. We prepare. We use our knowledge and tools to minimize danger. But we don't let fear paralyze us. And if that makes you uncomfortable, Perhaps the question isn't whether humans are too dangerous for the galaxy, but whether the galaxy is ready to stop playing it safe. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We're not asking to be feared, Seo-yun continued. We're asking to be understood. Yes, we're different. Yes, we come from a world that shaped us into survivors, but we bring that strength to the galactic community not as a threat, but as a resource. How many species have distress calls that go unanswered because the rescue is too dangerous? How many lives have been lost because no one was willing to take the risk? She pulled up a data file. In the 3 months since humanity achieved FTL travel, we've responded to 12 distress calls. 12 situations that were classified as too dangerous for standard rescue protocols. We've saved 273 lives. 0 casualties on our side, 0 casualties among those we rescued. Those are our statistics. Those are who we are. Counselor Drethik stood again. Those numbers are impressive, Admiral. But they also prove my point. You succeed where others fail, because you're willing to accept risks that rational species avoid. What happens when that risk-taking behavior extends beyond rescues? What happens when humans decide they want resources from a dangerous region or territory in a hazardous area? Will you charge in with the same disregard for caution? We have laws, Counselor. We have ethics. We have international agreements that govern our behavior. Just because we're not afraid doesn't mean we're lawless. But your laws are based on Earth perspectives. Can we trust that those perspectives align with galactic peace? Before Seo-yun could respond, the chamber's emergency alert system activated. A priority distress call was coming through, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Station Kepler 442b. We are experiencing catastrophic system failure. The station is breaking apart. 10,000 inhabitants need immediate evacuation. Our orbit is decaying into a Class 8 Deathworld. We have 6 hours before total structural collapse. Any ships in range, please help. The chamber erupted into chaos. A Class 8 Deathworld was nearly impossible for most species to approach, even in protected ships. The combination of radiation storms, gravity wells, and atmospheric electrical discharges made rescue operations a death sentence. Kelvik pulled up the station's location on his personal display. It was 3 light-years away, in a region known for spatial anomalies and dangerous cosmic weather. No standard rescue fleet would reach them in time, and even if they did, the conditions were too hostile. We need to vote on this, the council chair said. Which fleets are available for deployment, Lance? No one wanted to volunteer their people for what was essentially a suicide mission. Seo-yun activated her communicator. This is Admiral Bay to Human Command. I'm authorizing deployment of the rescue fleet. 12 ships, full crews. Destination Kepler 442b station. Authorization code Prometheus 7. The chamber went silent. Every representative turned to stare at her. You're sending 12 ships? Drethik said. That's your entire rescue fleet. If they fail, they won't fail, Seo-yun said calmly. They're humans. But a Class 8 world is difficult, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But not impossible. My people will get those 10,000 civilians off that station, and they'll do it with time to spare. The council chair looked at her with a mixture of respect and horror. The Defiant Hope dropped out of FTL space and immediately felt the fury of a Class 8 Deathworld. The ship shook as radiation storms buffeted the hull. Warning alarms screamed across every system. Outside the viewports, Station Kepler 442b tumbled slowly in a decaying orbit, pieces breaking off and spiraling down toward the planet below. Status report, Captain Ji-hoon Park ordered, gripping his command chair as another wave of radiation washed over them. Radiation levels are extreme, Lieutenant Doyen Choi reported. Shields are holding, but we're going to need to rotate crews every 30 minutes to avoid overexposure. Gravity well is pulling us in, Pilot Subin Huang said, her hands steady on the controls despite the turbulence. I'm fighting it, but we're burning through fuel fast. The station has lost main power, Dr. Haeyeon Kim added from her medical station. Their backup systems are failing. Life support is down to 40% capacity. Ji-hoon looked at the tactical display. The other 11 human ships had arrived and were taking up positions around the station. Each ship carried specialized equipment for extreme environment rescues. They had trained for scenarios like this, though never quite this bad. Open a channel to all ships. Let's coordinate this. Captain Jisoo's face appeared on the screen, her ship Indomitable Spirit holding position on the far side of the station. Ji-hoon, we're reading 10,000 life signs across 12 different species. Most of them are in the central habitat ring, but there are clusters scattered throughout the station. Then we split up and go get them, Ji-hoon said. Every ship takes a section. We have 5 hours before the station breaks up completely. Engineer Min-ji Lee was already calculating entry points. Captain, the station's hull is breached in at least 20 locations. We can use those breaches to get inside faster than trying to dock normally. Do it. Toyun, assemble your boarding teams. Haeon, get medical teams ready for multiple species. We don't know what kind of injuries we're dealing with. The rescue operation began with controlled chaos. Human teams launched from their ships in small shuttles and EVA suits, navigating through debris and radiation to reach the dying station. Every movement was calculated, every risk assessed, but they moved with a confidence that came from training on a planet that tried to kill them daily. Inside the station, the inhabitants were in full panic. Multiple species huddled together in emergency shelters, their environmental suits straining to keep them alive. When the first humans breached the hull and entered the habitat ring, the reaction was shock. Rescue Team Alpha entering Section 7, Doyen reported over the radio. His team of 6 moved through the damaged corridors, their suit sensors scanning for life signs. They found their first group quickly, a cluster of 30 Methodians trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead. We're here to help, Doyen said through his translator. Stay calm, we're getting you out. One of the Methodians, a station administrator named Velcris, stared at the humans in disbelief. You're human. But the radiation levels are being monitored, Doyen said calmly. He pulled out a cutting torch and began working on the bulkhead. Our suits are rated for this environment. You're safe now. Behind him, medic Hyunwoo Nam was already scanning the trapped aliens for injuries. 3 with radiation sickness, 2 with broken limbs, 1 unconscious. All treatable. I need transport back to the Defiant Hope for the critical cases. Acknowledged, Ji-hoon's voice came through. Shuttle incoming. The cutting torch made quick work of the bulkhead. Doyen's team pulled the Methodians out one by one, carrying those who couldn't walk. Young Ensign Min-ho Kang lifted 2 adults at once, his augmented suit giving him strength, but also showing the baseline physical capability that made other species nervous. Your strength, Velcris said, as Min-ho carried him toward the evacuation point. It's not just the suit, is it? Minho shrugged, the gesture lost in the bulky EVA suit. I work out. And Earth's gravity is higher than most worlds. We just adapt to what we need. Across the station, similar scenes were playing out. Human teams moved through sections that other species had abandoned as too dangerous. They operated in radiation fields that would kill most aliens in minutes. They carried equipment through gravity fluctuations that would crush less sturdy species. Engineer Min-ji Lee led a team to the station's power core. If they could restore even partial power, the evacuation would go faster. The core was located in one of the most damaged sections of the station, with radiation levels off the charts and structural integrity at critical levels. This is insane, one of the station engineers said over the radio. He was a Velen who had been trying to reach the core for hours but couldn't get close without his equipment failing. You can't work in those conditions. Watch us, Min-ji said cheerfully. Her team entered the core chamber, their suits' radiation warning screaming. They had maybe 40 minutes before they would need to rotate out, but that was enough time. Min-ji assessed the damage quickly. The main power coupling had been destroyed by a micrometeor impact, and the backup systems had cascaded into failure. She pulled out her tools and got to work, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. This is just like the reactor incident in Tokyo, she muttered to her team. Remember, don't touch the blue conduits, they're carrying a charge that will cook you even through the suit. Her team worked around her, following her instructions exactly. They bypassed destroyed systems, rerouted power through undamaged conduits, and jury-rigged solutions that would make any proper engineer cringe, but would work long enough to matter. Power restored to sections 1 through 6, Min-ji reported. Lighting is back, some life support is functional. It won't last forever, but it'll hold. In the medical bay of the Defiant Hope, Dr. Haeon Kim was dealing with the injured in waves. Every shuttle that returned brought more aliens suffering from radiation exposure, physical trauma, and environmental shock. She had set up triage stations based on species, with each area configured for different atmospheric and gravitational needs. The radiation sickness cases need cellular regeneration therapy, she told her medical team. I'm adapting Earth treatments, but monitor their responses carefully. Some species metabolize drugs differently. A young broken circle patient, barely an adult by their species standards, looked at Heian with wide eyes. "You're not afraid? The radiation exposure we suffered would kill you." Heian checked the scanner readings and administered treatment. "It would make me sick, yes. But we've learned to treat radiation exposure very well. Earth has had some very unfortunate lessons in that area." The patient didn't understand, but Heian didn't elaborate. The history of nuclear accidents and weapons testing on Earth was not something she wanted to discuss while trying to provide comfort. Botanist Jiwon Song had volunteered for a different task. She was helping evacuate the station's xenobotany lab, which contained samples from hundreds of worlds. Most of the staff had abandoned it, assuming the samples were lost. Jiwon disagreed. "These are irreplaceable," she said to her team as they carefully packed containment units. "Some of these species might be extinct in the wild. We're saving them." One of the station botanists, monitoring via radio from an escape pod, was amazed. "You're risking your life for plants." "We're risking our lives for life," Jiwon corrected. "These samples represent millions of years of evolution. They're as worth saving as any person." She worked quickly but carefully, using techniques she had developed studying Earth's most dangerous plants. Some of the samples were toxic, some were radioactive, some existed in environmental conditions that would kill humans instantly. She treated them all with the same respect and efficiency. 3 hours into the rescue operation, the station's orbit degraded sharply. The gravity well of the Class 8 Deathworld below grabbed the structure and pulled hard. Alarms blared as sections began to tear apart. "All teams were out of time," Jihoon broadcast. "Final evacuation now. Leave anything that's not alive." The human teams moved faster, but they didn't panic. They had trained for this exact scenario. Every rescue worker knew their route back to the evacuation points. Every team had assigned shuttles, but then a section of the station collapsed unexpectedly, trapping a group of civilians in a rapidly depressurizing habitat ring. The 50 people inside had maybe 5 minutes before the atmosphere vented completely. "This is Team Delta," a team leader reported. "We're closest, but we can't reach them in time through standard routes. The corridors are blocked." Doyen looked at the tactical map, analyzing options. There was one way to reach them, through an exterior route along the station's hull. It would mean exposure to full radiation, electrical storms, and the gravity well's tidal forces. Most species couldn't survive it even in protective suits. "I'll go," Doyen said. "Negative," Jihoon responded immediately. "You'll die." "Maybe, but they'll definitely die if I don't try." Doyen was already moving toward the airlock. "I can make it, sir. I've trained for worse." He hadn't really, but he believed he could do it. That was the difference. That was what made humans different. Doyen exited the airlock and magnetized his boots to the station's hull. The environment hit him immediately. Radiation counters maxed out. Lightning from the planet's atmosphere arced across the station's structure. The gravity well pulled at him.